This is Sharon. Thanks for joining me today. I was able to sit down with my friend Jyn Hall and talk about her passion for writing kids' books, more specifically picture books. Please join me as we learn more about that craft. Hi, Jyn. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Great. Today we're talking about your passion, and do you want to tell us all about your interest and your passion as of late?
Passion, I believe, goes into my calling. And I will say that today we'll be talking about picture book writing. But recently, my husband and I did a 14-week study with a small group from our church that we led that was on the subject of your calling. And so we came up with kind of calling statements. I'm still working through mine, so let me read it because I don't have it memorized, and it's a work in progress. But I see and craft the stories in and through lives. When people walk with me, it's a wholly just journey, peppered with grace and flowing with connections and creativity. So that's kind of the calling over my life. And what we're going to be talking about today is picture books and storytelling. So I fell in love with story at a very young age, reading, writing, telling, acting. I was on stage from the time I was about 4 or 5 years old. As a kid, my brother and I used to dream that I would write and he would illustrate my books. And when I was even in junior high, I won an honorable mention in this national writing contest. And somehow, I know that I've always been a storyteller, but somehow as I got older and then pursued a career, that storytelling venue was acting. And it was so interesting because my husband and I recently have talked about, I will always say, oh, the book is so much better than the movie. So I have no idea why, as a storyteller, that I actually went into acting instead of writing. It still perplexes me, but I had a great 22-year career as an actress. And since the pandemic, I kind of did a pivot. Some of it had to do with my health. Some of it just burned out after 22 years of the hustle. And so I finally got a picture book out of my head and on paper, and it was horrible and ended up not really being my story to tell, which is another story. But so that's kind of how I started pursuing that. Oh, and in the 22 years, I did do some writing, wrote a screenplay that won an award, and commercial scripts, comedy sketches, podcast episode for an Emmy-winning producer. But yeah, so now I guess it's been about, what would that be, 2 years writing. So
Jyn, what type of kid books do you write?
So I write picture books right now, which are just what they sound like, the ones with all the pictures in them. They're usually for kids 4 to 7 or 8. Before that's called board books, you know, the little rhyming ones for the little kids, bedtime, stuff like that. So board books, I do picture books. Last year, I wrote Stories of the Heart. I have Waves of Change about these 2 amazing girls in Bali, Indonesia, who are cleaning up their island, and it's kind of their organizations moving to the world. But they were 10 and 12 when they started. They're amazing. Then I wrote a story called Pop in the Mountain, folksy, lyrical, based on my own grandfather, whose dream in San Diego, he lived across from a very big mountain across the valley. And he said he'd always wanted to go there. And this was when he only had a couple years left to live. And so the family arranged to get him up top there. The firemen took him up. It was really cool. And then the other one is Tweeting the Titanic, which is my great grandfather's true-ish story about when he was in Ireland. He was supposed to be going to the Titanic to work on it, riding his bicycle, hit a cow, ended up in the hospital, thought it was the worst thing that had happened. His dreams are dashed. And then all of a sudden saved his life, and he ended up in America a year later. So those last year was the stories of my heart. This year I'm writing humor because I feel like me and everybody else could use some lightness and laughter and jokes. And then maybe 2023, I might write middle grade. And middle grade, you may be thinking middle school, but it's actually where picture books leave off, and it's for the 8 to 12-year-olds, because then YA, starts 13 and up.
What is it about this passion that you like so much?
I think it comes down to reading, first of all, but then also writing, and just imagination, creativity, and combining that with intellect and knowledge, I think is really fun. I love the puzzle of words too, because I will say writing picture books, the market has really changed from the picture books that we read as a kid. And so generally, if you're talking fiction and not nonfiction, they want them 500 words or less, which I have some friends who are screenwriters and they keep saying like, oh my gosh, that's got to be so easy. No, it actually makes it harder because every word is precious. Every word has to count. Every word has to mean something. And you just have to keep, like this one that just won in a contest, I spent a year on it and probably 30 some drafts just on this book. And it will probably be changed more times.
What do you do to invest in your passion?
I joined SCBWI, which is a Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, which is kind of one of the biggest and best societies I think that you can join. And anyone can join. It's not if you're published or not, anybody can join, but then they do have a special PAL, which is published and listed authors. So I do conferences, workshops, critique groups with them. They're fantastic. And I would suggest that if people want to get involved, that they get involved regionally and not just nationally, because nationally it's just a bunch of people and you learn. But if you want to put that into practice and meet people and interact and have connections, and that's in your regional. I'm part of 12 by 12 picture book, which is a challenge. We have to write a picture book a month. So by the end of the year, you have 12, and I did it last year. I got a baker's or a writer's dozen, so I had 13. Only 3 of them are polished. It's quite a hustle, but the community of people there is what makes it just so worthwhile. These mostly women, but some men too, that are way ahead of me in their journey, and you just get to hear so many tips and helpful things. What else? I said critique groups, contests. I enter a lot of contests. I guess I have some exciting news. I don't know, you probably saw on Facebook, but I just won. I'm a finalist in PB Party contest, which means that I am part of a group of people, of writers and illustrators who are in a showcase that 62 agents and editors are going to be perusing over the next week. And I've already gotten 3 requests, which is exciting. And then I was a winner for 50 Precious Words contest. And then last year I won a couple contests as well. What else? I got back on Twitter because apparently the Kidlit population there is hopping, and it's actually Kidlit is a very positive community. So my Twitter feed is very positive and uplifting and encouraging, which I know is not everybody's experience on Twitter, but I did get back on that. And then what else? I will say Instagram is a place for illustrators, but I am not an illustrator. Wish I could draw, can't draw to save my life, not even stick figures. And I was telling my husband just kind of, what I was going to say that I've been doing. And he said, well, don't forget to mention that you spend 40 to 45 hours a week on this. So that's another investment, is time. So one of my favorite things that I didn't mention is Story Storm. And you did that with me last year. I did the official one this year, and that is a 30-day in January, idea generating one blog post a day that everyone comes in and puts you through a story and exercises and everything to generate ideas. And I think last year I got something like over 100 ideas. This year I got 70 something. So it's always so many ideas, so little time.
How do you find your illustrator to, to really portray what I'm sure you have an image in your mind already. So I would think it'd be hard to find an illustrator to really portray what's in your mind.
So the interesting thing that I didn't know before I started on this journey is if you're going to be traditionally published, which is the route that I'm going, which means that I want to get an agent. I keep getting closer every day. I want to get an agent. The agent will then sell to an editor in a publishing house. If you go that route, you have zero say in the illustrator. And so something that we learn right off is that it is as much the illustrator's book as it is the writer's book. Like, it's the marriage of that. And a really good illustrator will be able to tell another story. Like, they're not just going to illustrate your words, but they're going to bring their own story to it as well. So, I mean, that's something super interesting. And you just hope that you get a great illustrator, because there are so many out there. But yeah, I think it would be hard if you get an illustrator that you feel isn't telling the story that you're trying to tell. And then you can choose your illustrator, I think, if you go hybrid or self-publishing. And well, Sharon, I know that you did that. Do you want to say anything about self-publishing? And I know it wasn't a picture book, but I didn't know if you wanted to chime in on that.
Yes, I did do the self-publish avenue, and that was mostly because I wasn't willing to eliminate characters and change my story. When I was going the more traditional route, I realized that I would have to change my story, and I wasn't willing to do that. So plus I didn't find an agent, and I didn't work that hard at finding one, but I'm sure there's some sort of avenue of working together with an agent to come up with a collaborative effort in your book. So what was more important to me was to getting my message down in paper and off my mind and heart. And it wasn't my living, I didn't expect to get, a salary off of it. It was really just an art that I wanted to deliver to other people. So that's why I took the self-publishing route.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the great benefits of self-publishing, is that you have total control over the final product that goes out. And then for people who are listening, there's something in the middle. It's called hybrid. And it's kind of hard to describe hybrid because every single hybrid publisher looks different, but it is just obviously a hybrid of self and traditional. So there's certain things that the author will have to pay for. There's certain things that the publisher will pay for, different ways that they'll help market, that you have to step in and market. So it's an interesting hybrid.
The whole journey of just publishing your book is long and intimidating. So good for you going towards that. Now, if some of our listeners are interested in this type of passion, how would you encourage them?
I would definitely, first of all, I'd say keep your day job. Seriously. I don't mean that as a discouragement. I just mean it as an encouragement, because this journey, especially if you're going traditional, will take so much longer than you ever expected. So, I mean, you're talking probably 3 to 5 years minimum. And I'm hearing friends who it's taking 15, 16 years. Just say, same advice that I would tell actors: get into classes first and foremost. I would also say join a CBWI, and I should know their website, but I don't. It's probably scbwi.org, but just Google it: Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. And there's just so many places that you can learn. Highlights Foundation, Writing Barn, of course, 12 by 12, which I absolutely love. just know that you're probably going to invest some money up front, like any, I don't know, I want to say like any career, but maybe not all careers. Yeah, you will invest some money up front, just like an acting career. How about that? And you want to get plugged into a community so that you can avoid the schmagents, the not legit agents who are going to charge you, really don't have the connections. I would just say pursue your passions, because if you squelch those, there's gonna be a missing part of you, because I believe that God gave us our passions, the healthy ones, and that we need to develop them and pursue them, or we're not living fully. It doesn't mean that you need to quit your job to pursue that passion full out. If you're going to do that, that's also fine. But there has to be some aspect of your passions in that, or the joy and the life and the energy in you isn't going to be full.
That is so true. I mean, it's a really difficult journey. Have an idea or a passion and you don't share it, it is trapped. And that's the nice thing with my own book, getting that story out is such a relief, even though that was a very difficult journey. It was a 10-year journey. And I also did the classes and had the critiques, and it was hard. It was difficult, but whew.
Can you tell me about that 10 years? Like, what was the yearly progress?
Started taking classes at UCSD, and I did that for 2 years because it was evening courses. And so I started my writing of the book there in class, and I had never started before, my first writing of the story, but I had the whole story in mind. So it was a very long journey. Even my first draft of it, I shared it with people and I'm like, oh, this is only okay. It was difficult. So I put it down for about 6 months and picked it back up. And even the hard stuff and the things that are difficult to hear, because I shared it with other people and because they were honest with me, it became a better book.
So I now meet with my critique group. We're called the Incredibles, and we came out of SCBWI, my region, Southern Breeze, which is one of the bigger regions because it covers all of Georgia, all of Alabama, and then the Panhandle of Florida. So we're pretty big. But so my critique group, the Incredibles, we talk all the time. Like, I honestly talk and meet with them more, especially during the pandemic, virtually, but then like my best friends. And so they're just a great group of women and very positive too. I was told when I first got into Kidlit that the Kidlit community is so positive.
Yeah, that is so true. The critiques are helpful, but you really need to know what your story is about, or your craft, or your heart, or your passion. And if they don't understand that at all, their critiques are not going to be met, and you have to really decipher that. And that's a difficult part. It's hard to receive it, and it's hard to change your story. Sometimes it's for the good. Like in my situation, it was for the good, but there was some information that I got. I'm like, I'm not going to take that. So it's a hard journey, but I love hearing that you're in a community like that.
Well, and one of the things with critiques too is that you are the only one that can tell this story this way. And so you need to stay true to that, whether it's picture book, whether it's adult fiction, whatever, that, you need to stay true to yourself too. So I think that's a part of it.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. Well, thank you so much, Jyn. I just loved chatting with you and hearing about your passion and just the discipline that's involved in it with, hours, many hours during the week. And it is a discipline, but you need to be true to your heart. And so I love hearing about your journey, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
If you like this discussion, give it a thumbs up. If you want to hear more like it, subscribe and turn on your notification. Thanks for joining me today.